Hello everybody, this is Jackalope Bun, and today we're just going to test out some of our audio equipment and practice some of our reading, because practice leads to being slightly better. Today we're going to be reading some stories from r/AskReddit, posted by Jude and Tude 5 years ago, with the question, what is your best true spooky story? Serious. The first story that we're going to read here is by Deleted, posted 5 years ago. I've posted this on my other account, copying and pasting it here. The scariest thing I've had happen while camping? So, I lived in Eastern Oregon, and my mom lives in Western Oregon. I went to visit her for the summer, and she's a very outdoorsy person, so we decided to take the 1-hour drive from her city to the coast. We end up in this free campsite at the top of this hill. Huge foothills on the coastal mountains, about a 25-minute drive from the top, where the campsite is, to the bottom, where the main road was. And we were the only campers there. We relaxed for the day, made food, etc. A truck full of men drive up to the hill and talk with my mom. I don't know what about. It wasn't suspicious at the time. And they leave us. Fast forward to the middle of the night, I wake up to my mom sitting straight up in the tent. I wake up easily, so I heard her gasp and it woke me. As soon as she saw I was awake, she put her hand over my mouth because I started to ask her, what's wrong? It was dead silent, and all of a sudden you hear footsteps right beside the tent. The little flap that covers the zipper was even moving. Thankfully, my mom has quick wits and said very loudly, "Kenny, grab the gun." Kenny is my dad, although that doesn't matter. And mind you, he was not there. It was just us girls, like I previously mentioned. They left. No harm was done. Thank Lord for my mama. TLDR, 2 girls at a campsite alone, people outside the tent in the middle of the night, and my mom pulled some badassery. The next story we're going to read is by Anselmo Ricketts, posted 5 years ago. I was camping in a valley by myself with no cell service. I stayed late on a trail and ran into a nice local dude as it was getting dark. He showed me a local campsite spot close to the river and the road, but camouflaged. I had a fire, drank beer, and listened to my friend's comedy podcast. I was loud and visible. Because it was dark already, I decided to sleep in the back of my truck under my topper, next to all my gear as opposed to setting up my tent. Next morning, I made a fire, cracked a beer, and started making breakfast. Then I noticed that there was a man at the edge of my camp. He comes closer, but never looks at me directly. This dude looks homeless, has a long, ratty beard, and has at least 100 plastic grocery bags tied all over his clothes. I comment about how nice the day is. No response from him. I offer him breakfast. Nothing. He sort of paces around the perimeter of my camp. I offer him a beer, but he just turns around. The dude is standing there, back to me, wandering around. I'm realizing that there isn't going to be any good happening. I had my beer, and my beer spray, and a buck knife super close. I give him an ultimatum. Mother effer, you are either going to acknowledge me or leave me immediately. He ignores me. I grab my bear mace and walk a few steps towards him. He sulked away and I threw my stuff into my truck and left that place real quick. I wonder if he had watched me during that night, and I thank my laziness for staying in my truck instead of a tent. The next story we're going to read is by Just Another Gamer. Posted this in another thread, but it seems appropriate here. Edited slightly to fit the thread. I've had several dreams similar to what I'm posting. I've been a caver in Florida for about 13 years, since I was about 6, and have been to lots of caves. Never been afraid before this to go on one. But when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I started having this reoccurring dream. I would have it at least twice a year. Always the same, even though I would realize I was dreaming after the first few interactions. I would fall asleep and dream of being in a cave and going into this little hole in the bottom. Inside, I would see a 10 to 15 foot long corridor, about 2 to 4 feet high. At the end of it, I would always turn left, and I always went to this red stop sign at the end. Like, someone ripped off the top and tossed it in, but I would always follow the corridor. I would turn and walk past the sign despite being scared, despite many times knowing what was in there, and the corridor would start descending, quickly opening into a large vertical chamber with the path leading down into a corkscrew. Everything became blurry at this point, but it was always the same. I saw trash scattered on the walls. I saw the pit leading down to a curved floor. I saw things undefined. Animals or people or something else at the bottom. And I saw my family. Each one of the things being tortured and killed every time, and I could never do anything. After I saw that, I would be stuck for a few seconds until I felt more, then saw everything turn and look at me. And I would wake up. Not like a normal dream where you just drift into consciousness, or a nightmare where you bolt up in fear, but like something pushed me out. Like I wasn't supposed to be in there. So I have this dream multiple times a year until I turned about 15. I did tell a friend about this dream before what happens next. My father decided to take us to some caves we've never been to before. One, which was Dog Drop. It was likely named so because someone either threw their pet in there or a coyote fell and the body was discovered later. Dog Drop had roughly 30-foot rappels straight down to the center. I went down with my brother while my father waited at the top. There was a hole in the ground. I started to feel uneasy, though I didn't know why. So I followed my brother into the hole. I felt worse as I moved down, and when I looked up, I saw the same corridor, the same turn, the same wall, the same bottles at the corner, and I instantly was hit with this overwhelming feeling of nausea and fear and being watched, and everything was screaming at me to leave. I froze, and I must have made some noise because my brother turned around and asked me what was wrong. I managed to say that I wanted to leave now and climbed out as quickly as I could. The thing that really makes it creepy for me is that I've never had this dream again. Year after year, I would have it consistently, but it just stopped after that. But I still remember it all, and I still feel afraid. Almost an external feel when I think of it. Alright, that was it. I kind of messed up a little bit on that last story, but yeah, we'll see how this sounds. Hopefully good. And if you guys have any comments or tips of how I can improve both the audio and the sound of everything that's going on, as well as just like my reading in general, because I know I kind of tend to stumble on words every once in a while. But yeah, I hope that was enjoyable for, a practice. Nothing too fancy, but yep, that's it. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.